I brought up toting slam. Like, so, belt had to be extra tight. You feel me? Like, my mom, these little sagging out of their knees. I know you ain't got no pistol on. Don't even talk tough to me. You feel me?
Like, jewelry and fast lifestyle.
Dang, man. Modern day chasers, man. We the young chasers, you hear me? We getting that change, though. That's what we do, though. Touch this black, something get dropped.
From our investigation, seems to be the leader of this gang. He's a 49-year-old man. He's been in prison for quite some time. His name is Howard Smith. His nickname is Hamo. He also goes by the Godfather. He's currently serving a life sentence, and we allege that he is the leader of this Brick Squad gang.
Candles sit in the courtyard of East New York's Pink Houses, where 33-year-old Shatavia Walls was shot on July 7th, but sadly died 10 days later.
A Lamborghini SUV slammed into the Toyota Camry she was in around 7 at the intersection of 103rd Avenue and Rockaway Boulevard, leaving this mangled mess.
Brooklyn, a borough known for its culture, creativity, and resilience. But in the shadows of gentrification and subway stops lies another story, one written in blood, fear, and silence. From the corridors of the Pink Houses to the stairwells of Ebbets Field, a generation of gang leaders turned neighborhoods into war zones and corner blocks into battlegrounds. These weren't just local beefs, these were enterprise-level operations built on violence, drug money, and ruthless power. This episode isn't about myths. It's not rap lyrics or street gossip, it's indictments, wiretaps, courtroom confessions, and life sentences. We're pulling the veil back on the real shot callers behind Brooklyn's most feared crews. The Route Boys, Bully Gang, Folk Nation, the 90s Crew, 90, Brick Squad Bloods, and the savage Whole Street Crew. This is the rise and fall of Brooklyn's most notorious gang leaders. Let's get into it.
Prasad was
Man, modern day chasers, man. We the young chasers, you hear me? We getting that change, though. That's what we do, though. Touch this black, something get dropped. I had your boy sitting up in here in jail and shit. This shit ain't for me, kid. Yeah? Not for me, kid. Did my time. Deserve it. Yeah, big bro. Look at my bro though. Look how they got my bro though. But chill though. Chill though. Y'all thought niggas wasn't coming home though? Chill though. Why y'all mad though? Chill though.
Malik Harrell, known on the streets as Mo Money, was the feared and undisputed leader of the Bully Gang, a violent street crew operating out of Brooklyn's Bedford-Stuyvesant neighborhood. Described by prosecutors as a ruthless shot caller, Harrell built the Bully Gang into a dangerous criminal enterprise, one that left a trail of violence, drugs, and death across the borough and beyond. In 2024, after a high-profile federal trial, Harrell was convicted on a sweeping 21-count RICO indictment, which included charges of racketeering, deletion, attempted deletion, armed robbery, conspiracy to distribute narcotics, and firearms possession. The conviction was the result of a years-long federal investigation into the Bully Gang's activities, which stretched from the streets of Brooklyn into the walls of Rikers Island, where the crew was also accused of drug trafficking and orchestrating hits. The government presented evidence linking Harrell to multiple shootings, including targeted attacks on rival gang members and an alleged contract deletion of a government informant. Prosecutors told the jury that Harrell accepted without hesitation a $5,000 contract to delete an informant, underscoring his willingness to commit deletion to protect the gang's criminal interests. Federal agents also tied Harrell and his gang to the distribution of drugs, using local networks and correctional facilities as points of sale. According to the Department of Justice, the Bully Gang ran operations with military-like coordination, intimidating witnesses, eliminating rivals, and using fear to dominate their territory. Harrell now awaits sentencing and faces a potential life sentence in federal prison. His conviction marks a major blow to gang activity in central Brooklyn, and a reminder of how deeply organized street violence can penetrate urban communities.
Candles sit in the courtyard of East New York's Pink Houses, where 33-year-old Shatavia Walls was shot on July 7th, but sadly died 10 days later.
Somebody to stop lighting the fireworks because the kids was in the park. They was asked politely.
She says days later, as Walls and a friend were leaving the Linden Boulevard building after a visit, they were gunned down. According to police sources, it's believed Walls was the intended target. A 30-year-old man was also shot but survived.
Malik Mill, a 30-year-old East New York native, was the feared and calculating leader of the 90 Gang, a violent street crew that held territorial control over the notorious Pink Houses housing complex in Brooklyn. Under Miller's leadership, the gang ruled the area through a mix of drug trafficking, intimidation, and targeted violence, establishing the Pink Houses as one of the most dangerous gang strongholds in the borough. In 2024, a federal jury found Miller guilty on a sweeping racketeering indictment centered around the 2020 deletion, a courageous young woman who had previously testified against one of Miller's underlings in a gun case. Prosecutors alleged that Walls became a marked target the moment she stepped into a courtroom. When she refused to recant her statement or be silenced, Miller orchestrated a revenge hit, ordering members of the 90 Gang to track her down and kill her in cold blood. Walls was shot multiple times in broad daylight near the Pink Houses, a demise that sent shockwaves through the community and drew national attention to the dangers of witness retaliation. During trial, federal prosecutors presented wiretaps, gang communications, and insider testimony proving that Miller masterminded the plot and used his power within the gang to enforce a brutal code of silence. Miller was ultimately convicted of racketeering, deletion for hire conspiracy, narcotics distribution, and firearms possession charges that could send him to life in federal prison without the possibility of parole.
Prosecutors say they were part of a street gang called the Brick Squad, a subset of a bigger, violent criminal network.
10 men arrested, accused of funneling money back to members behind bars. Prosecutors say the gang is behind several shootings, 2 of them deadly and caught on video.
His name is Howard Smith, but authorities say he likes to go by a nickname.
Yo, bro, I'm Godfather.
That's Smith on a wiretapped call from inside prison, where prosecutors allege he sent marching orders to this team of gang members. Another gang member, Markel Pender, inside the prison walls of Attica, sent similar orders, even showed surveillance video of this one, where the accused gunman raises his arms only hours after he appeared in this video smoking with victim John Fernandez, allegedly targeted for not selling enough.
This is an old school gang, and they make their money from dealing drugs.
And here's another surveillance video of a second on Hart Street in Bed-Stuy in April of 2018. Brick Squad gang allegedly sold drugs not only in Brooklyn, but also in Binghamton and in Bangor, Maine. The major clue that tipped off law enforcement, the prison commissary accounts of Smith and Pender, gang members allegedly contributing money to prove loyalty.
Is from our investigation, seems to be the leader of this gang. He's a 49-year-old man. He's been in prison for quite some time. His name is Howard Smith. His nickname is Hamo. He also goes by the Godfather. He's currently serving a life sentence, and we allege that he is the leader of this Brick Squad gang. He is definitely an integral part of this conspiracy, although he's in prison. When we were investigating this case, one of the things we learned is that he has more than $25,000 in his commissary. We learned that he was often complaining that people weren't putting enough money in his commissary and wasn't visiting him enough. Let's play one of the calls that we intercepted.
Most of these dudes are not really putting nothing in. They're not even putting no work in, especially behind the No, bro, that's all. Yo, bro, I'm the fucking Godfather, right? I'm the fucking Godfather. I don't take kids. You take care of me. What Godfather you really meant? And then he takes care of Think about it. Does it make sense?
The Brick Squad, a Bloods-affiliated gang also known as the Untouchable Gorilla Stone Nation, was active in Brooklyn neighborhoods like East New York and Brownsville. In December 2019, Brooklyn District Attorney Eric Gonzalez announced a 48-count indictment against 10 alleged members, charging them with racketeering, deletion, drug trafficking, and weapons offenses. Authorities said the gang was moving drugs across New York City, upstate New York, and even into Maine, using violence to control their territory. At the center of the case was gang leader Howard Smith, known as the Godfather. Prosecutors flagged his unusually large prison commissary account as a sign of the gang's profits. The indictment tied several members to two 17-year-old John Fernandez, shot in Ocean Hill in 2017, and Claudel Gary, gunned down in Bedford-Stuyvesant in 2018. Deshaun Washington, Quazir Farmer, Marco Pender, and Christopher Garcia were among those charged. In total, the indictment included 7 non-fatal shootings and extensive narcotics operations. By September 2024, prosecutors reported that Washington, Garcia, and Farmer had been sentenced to life in prison. 6 other defendants received terms ranging from 4 to 12 years. Gonzalez stated that these convictions should send a clear message. Those who terrorize communities with gun violence and drug crime will be held fully accountable. Court records revealed further detail about the deletions. On December 7, 2017, Deshaun Washington, acting on orders from Christopher Garcia, ambushed and fatally shot fellow gang member John Fernandez outside 601 Bainbridge Street. The two believed Fernandez had cooperated with law enforcement and wasn't earning enough for the crew. On April 18, 2018, Quazir Farmer and Marco Pender shot and rival Claudel Gary outside 175 Hart Street in Bedford-Stuyvesant. The attack, which followed a year-long feud, was carried out at close range.
Thursday night, after hailing an Uber to visit relatives, a Lamborghini SUV slammed into the Toyota Camry she was in around 7 at the intersection of 103rd Avenue and Rockaway Boulevard, leaving this mangled mess. The driver of the Uber and a passenger in the Lamborghini were injured and are recovering at the hospital. The driver of the Lamborghini fled the scene on foot.
Jason Liriano was the mastermind behind the Route Boys, a highly organized and mobile street crew that ran a multi-state burglary and narcotics trafficking operation. Based primarily in Brooklyn, the Route Boys gained a reputation for their aggressive tactics, targeting pharmacies and convenience stores across New York City and parts of Long Island in a coordinated effort to steal prescription pills and cash. The stolen pharmaceuticals, primarily opioids and other controlled substances, were then funneled into an illicit distribution network that fueled the group's drug empire. Federal prosecutors described the Route Boys as a well-oiled criminal enterprise, using stolen vehicles, masks, and lookouts to evade law enforcement during their high-stakes robberies. The group operated with precision, often breaking into multiple stores in a single night, and were known to carry firearms during their operations to protect their turf and intimidate rivals. Liriano, who orchestrated the entire scheme, was eventually brought down by a sweeping federal investigation. He pleaded guilty to conspiracy to distribute controlled substances and possession of firearms in furtherance of drug trafficking. In one of the final chapters of the case, Liriano was sentenced to 22 years in federal prison, making him the last of 10 co-defendants convicted and sentenced in connection to the Route Boys operation. Yasser Ashburn, the notorious leader of a violent folk nation set operating in Brooklyn, was sentenced to 2 consecutive life terms in federal prison. His crew operated primarily out of the Ebbets Field Houses, a public housing complex in Crown Heights that served as their stronghold. From roughly 2007 until their arrests in 2011 and 2012, Ashburn and his gang were responsible for a wave of bloodshed, including deletion, non-fatal shootings, and armed robberies throughout Brooklyn and the greater tri-state area. Federal prosecutors described the Folk Nation crew as a tight-knit, heavily armed unit of 20 to 25 members who controlled territory through fear and brute force. Weapons were frequently stashed in stairwells, and orders came directly from Ashburn, who was considered both the operational and spiritual leader of the set. After a jury trial, Ashburn and two of his top associates, Jamal Laurent and Travell Merritt, were found guilty of racketeering and racketeering conspiracy. These charges included 3 brutal deletions: Courtney Robinson, Bren Duncan, and Dasta James. The sentences were handed down in late 2015. Merritt received 40 years in prison on November 6th. Just 4 days later, Laurent was sentenced to 5 consecutive life terms. Ashburn, the gang's top shot caller, was hit with 2 life sentences, ensuring he would never see freedom again. One of the most disturbing incidents tied to the gang was the demise of Courtney Robinson on April 20, 2008. That night, a birthday party inside the Ebbets Field Houses turned violent when a fight broke out. Robinson attempted to protect his nephew, who was being beaten by Folk Nation members. Ashburn briefly left the scene, retrieved a handgun hidden in a stairwell part of the gang's known weapons cache, and returned to the apartment. Without hesitation, he shot Robinson in the back at point-blank range, deleting him instantly.
I brought up toting slam. Like, so, belt had to be extra tight. You feel me? Like, these little sagging out of their knees. I know you ain't got no pistol on you. Don't even talk tough to me. You feel me? Like,
well, Steve, a very dramatic day here. I was in the courtroom as this accused Bloods gang leader and rapper on the rise tried to counter the government's claims that he's a killer drug lord who terrorized his own community.
Born out of that, I was forced with a decision. Either I'm gonna starve or risk going to prison.
32-year-old Ronald Heron, known as Rod Diggs, portrays the gritty lifestyle of the streets in his music videos. The aspiring rapper, with a long rap sheet of drug and weapons charges, tried to convince a jury that he gave up gangbanging for the murderous Mad Dog Bloods to focus on his music after his last prison term. His childhood friend Shandook McFadder says prosecutors are smearing Heron with stereotypes and circumstantial evidence.
The music is basically us talking about the life that we come from, not necessarily saying this is what I did. You know, this is a very intelligent man, and this is not a man who would commit all these crimes and didn't tell you for you to use it against him.
Inside the Brooklyn Federal Courthouse, prosecutors painted a very different picture with a 23-count indictment. They allege that Heron is guilty of racketeering charges for running a drug-dealing operation in the Gowanus housing development where he grew up. They also claim he was involved in 3 murders and 3 attempted murders and introduced his music videos as evidence.
The ring 10 racks, man. That's platinum.
That's what it is. We're in the projects.
That's heavy. This
ain't no goddamn bourbon shit. We're in the projects, son, so you know credibility counts, son. Call the tower.
That's 423, man. It's just, you know, 4 pound, man.
You know what I mean? Let y'all niggas know this ain't no gimmick, man. We in the projects for real, man. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, that's definitely hood.
Yeah, you see that, right? This is hood.
Yeah, you gotta catch that.
No. Oh, the flat screen, yeah. Somebody just bought a flat screen.
Check the dishes.
What's your explanation of why Rod Diggs is in prison right now?
That's just that's off a lot of hearsay. That's just like.
I mean, what was he convicted of?
He's trying to say a bunch of murders and drug trafficking and things of that nature, so like that.
He was out on parole, right?
No, he wasn't on parole.
Not parole, but he had beaten.
Yeah, he had
beaten a murder case.
Yeah, he had beaten a murder case.
He had a murder case and he was out.
Ronald Heron, aka Rod Diggs, is a notorious figure in Brooklyn's street gang and hip-hop scenes. Raised in the Gowanus houses in Boerum Hill, Brooklyn, he rose to prominence as a high-ranking member of the Bloods gang, specifically the murderous Mad Dogs faction. His criminal activities spanned drug trafficking, violent crimes, and other illicit enterprises, with a significant presence in Brooklyn's drug trade. Rod Diggs' involvement in multiple acts of violence, including shootings and murders, was well documented. He often used his music and social media platforms to boast about his criminal exploits and intimidate rivals. In 2010, Rod Diggs was arrested and later indicted on charges including racketeering, drug trafficking, and multiple murders. During his 2014 trial, prosecutors presented evidence from his rap lyrics and social media posts to tie him to various crimes. He was found guilty on 21 counts, including 3 murders, and sentenced to 12 life terms plus 105 years in federal prison. Despite his criminal activities, Rod Diggs was also an aspiring rapper, using his music to narrate his life in the streets and the struggles of living in Brooklyn's violent neighborhoods. His lyrics often reflected his involvement in gang life and criminal exploits.
Christian Keston John, from Brooklyn, was the cold-blooded ringleader of the Hull Street crew, a violent and sadistic gang that operated across Bushwick and Bedford-Stuyvesant during the 2000s. Under John's leadership, the crew gained a fearsome reputation for not just eluding rivals, but doing so with extreme cruelty. Over more than a decade, the Hull Street crew terrorized entire neighborhoods, carrying out kidnappings, drug deals, home invasions, and multiple torture deletions that shocked even seasoned investigators. In 2014, a Brooklyn federal jury convicted Keston John on a staggering array of charges, including racketeering, 6 counts of deletion, attempted deletion, armed robbery, kidnapping, conspiracy to distribute narcotics, and weapons violations. According to prosecutors, John's role went far beyond street-level violence. He was the mastermind, often directing others to carry out horrific acts of brutality. Among the most chilling details presented in court, John ordered the torture and execution of at least 6 individuals. In some cases, the victims were duct-taped, bound, beaten, and shot at close range. In one particularly gruesome incident, John lured a man into an abandoned house, suffocated him, and then set his body on fire, sending a clear message to enemies and would-be informants. The gang's crimes were not just confined to the streets. They were involved in large-scale drug trafficking in and around Bushwick, often using violence to control turf and silence threats. John's second-in-command, Marvin Johnson, played a key role in orchestrating many of these acts and was also sentenced to life in prison. In January 2017, Keston John was officially sentenced to life imprisonment in federal court. Attorney officials described the Hull Street crew as one of the most dangerous criminal organizations in Brooklyn at the time. Ronald Williams, a 43-year-old East Flatbush native, was identified by federal prosecutors as a high-ranking member and violent enforcer of the 90s crew, a street gang that operated primarily out of central Brooklyn. Known for its grip on local drug distribution and intimidation tactics, the 90s crew built a reputation for ruthless enforcement, with Williams playing a central role. In a major takedown by federal authorities, Williams was convicted in Brooklyn Federal Court of murder for hire conspiracy and large-scale drug trafficking. The case against him was built through wiretaps, surveillance, and key witness testimony, including evidence that Williams offered $5,000 to have a suspected informant deleted. According to court records, the hit was intended to silence anyone cooperating with law enforcement and to protect the gang's drug business from internal collapse. Beyond the deletion plot, Williams was also accused of running a massive marijuana distribution operation, selling hundreds of pounds of product in and around his East Flatbush neighborhood. He maintained control through a tight network of street-level dealers and used threats, violence, and fear to keep his operation intact. The streets of Brooklyn have birthed legends, some for their art, others for their terror. These men led with iron fists, ruled through violence, and built empires off blood and bricks. But in the end, the same streets that made them also buried them in courtrooms, in caskets, or behind bars for the rest of their lives. Their stories are more than just gang tales, they're cautionary blueprints of how far power can go when left unchecked. Every life taken, every community scarred, every child caught in the crossfire, it all leaves a mark. And while the headlines move on, the consequences live forever. If you found value in this breakdown, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Whose name held the most weight? And what does that say about the world we live in? Until next time, stay sharp, stay safe, and never forget the streets always keep receipts.